Today we are covering the front room because we know in-laws be fronting. Pregnant anthropology professor Belinda visits department chair Frank Stewart in his office to discuss her schedule. But Frank's secretary Mary tells her that Frank will not be available for another hour. As Belinda leaves a note for Frank, Mary belittles Belinda, calling her a part-time professor, prompting Belinda to clarify that she is no longer an adjunct. Bitch better recognize Brandy. Belinda and her public defender husband Norman Irwin visit their vagina puppeteer for an ultrasound. Still grieving from the death of their firstborn son, Wallace, Belinda is nervous that there won't be any heartbeat, but Norman assures her that everything will be okay. Thankfully, they have a healthy baby girl. Later that night at home, the frustrated Belinda drags Norman's mother's pink chair into the front room downstairs, which they're converting into a nursery as they want to keep the nursery away from Wallace's room upstairs. When Norman checks on her, she informs him that the department gave away 2 of her classes to a new hire and expresses her frustration about everything in their life being unstable. Suddenly, Norman receives a call from his estranged stepmother, Salange, who informs him that his father is dying because of stomach cancer and asks him to visit. Norman looks like a young William Dafoe. Refusing to visit, Norman reveals to Belinda that Salange used to abuse him, forcing him to give in to her religious beliefs, and that she believes that the Holy Spirit possesses her and gives her powers. He adds that he kept it from Belinda because he thought that Salange's behavior might scare her away and that Salange might not approve of her, hinting that she's a racist. Norman then tells Belinda that they should just focus on their family. After a serious talk, the two get down and dirty. Hearing a baby crying, Belinda sleepwalks to her dead baby, Wallace's old room, where she finds his beanie on the carpet. Heartbroken, she tells Norman about it and places it in a box that contains Wallace's things. Belinda visits Frank in his office again, but Mary tells her that Frank is showing the new hires around. Frustrated, Belinda resigns. When she gets home after trying to buy a can of paint, she informs Norman that her card declined. Norman informs her that Pastor Lewis, the pastor from his parents' church, called to inform him that his father has died. Norman, together with Belinda, attends his father's funeral. A white girl looks at Belinda in a sussy-friendly way. On their way out of the church after the service, Pastor Lewis approaches them to offer his condolences and asks Norman to talk to Salange, assuring him that she has changed. Norman and Belinda go see the ailing Salange, who's wearing a black veil and using 2 walking canes. Why is a 5'2" old-ass woman scaring the crap out of me right now? Salange calls Belinda Belinda and puts her hand on her stomach, correctly guessing that they're expecting a girl, shocking Belinda. Salange shows Norman her will, saying she will give them everything, and in return, they have to let her stay with them in their home since she has already sold their house, and her doctor said she shouldn't be alone. Oh, hell to the nah. Keep that money, sis. Although reluctant, as Salange was a horrible stepmother to him, and he fears that she will rule their home and force her religious beliefs on them, Norman agrees after Belinda reminds him that they're financially unstable since Norman a broke-ass public defender, and they can use the inheritance to pay off their house. Norman says that Salange didn't allow him to watch Moesha and only watch VeggieTales growing up. Salange moves into their home and insists on staying in the room they converted into a nursery since she's too old to get to the upstairs bedroom they prepared for her, and it's unsafe to have the nursery downstairs. Belinda convinces Norman to agree, as she thinks Salange has a point, and she wants to keep her from asking about Wallace. As they're unpacking, Belinda finds an older picture of Salange when she used to be an actress. Then Salange coughs out some yellow bile. Belinda sees a United Daughters of Confederacy, signifying that Salange was a descendant of Confederate Civil War soldiers, aka she a racist white bitch. Then Salange stops Norman from taking his mother's chair out of her room and sits on it. She then offers to buy new furniture to properly furnish the house. At dinner, Salange insists that they pray before they eat, although the couple doesn't normally pray. Upon learning that the couple is planning to name the baby Fern, Salange mocks the name and starts racial microaggressions towards Belinda, pissing Norman off. When Belinda asks her what she thinks a proper name should be, Salange asks Belinda what her parents' names are and prays in tongues while touching Belinda's stomach. After mentioning Wallace, she finally suggests Lori, after Norman's father, Lawrence. As Salange prays in tongues one night, she mentions Wallace and Belinda starts feeling strange, like having an eerie dream. Belinda then wonders how Salange knew about their dead baby Wallace. The next morning, Belinda gets frightened when she finds Salange facing down on the floor in her bedroom, but it turns out that she's just praying. That was a face of disappointment finding out she's still alive. While Salange is touching Belinda's stomach, she correctly guesses that something happened in her stomach before the baby she's carrying. After asking Belinda if she's seeing things, she tells her that it's not going to stop and asks her to pray with her. Uncomfortable and freaked out, Belinda refuses. Belinda asks Norman if he thinks Salange is right about the baby's name and tells him that she's starting to like Lori, prompting Norman to comment that Salange's power is increasing. The next day, Belinda sees Salange reading a Bible upside down, taking a note from Trump's handbook. Then she discovers that Salange peed on the couch and covered it with a pillow. Salange then asks Belinda to keep it from Norman. At dinner, Norman notices a stank-ass smell. After Belinda asks Salange permission to tell Norman, Belinda informs him that Salange is incontinent, which angers Salange, saying Belinda is the only incontinent one here. After Salange walks away, Norman gets upset about Salange's behavior towards Belinda, but Belinda explains that Salange begged her not to tell him. The next day, Belinda sees a necklace with a fish and cross pendant hanging on one of her statues and discovers that Salange pooped on her bed. As Norman reluctantly carries Salange to the bathroom, Belinda is shocked to see Salange suddenly shift from crying to smiling eerily. Since Norman needs to go, Belinda is left to clean up Salange. I bet Norman lying, he just didn't want to deal with all that literal shit. As Salange sits in the bathtub, Belinda asks her why she hung the necklace on her statue, to which Salange responds with, "Honor thy mother." Apparently it's used now as a Christian symbol, but Belinda says the symbol was stolen by Christians. Salange without her wig looking like Gollum. Salange then tells her that both of them live in a world that isn't made for them, to which Belinda tells her that persecution is being treated unfairly despite doing everything right. While praying in tongues, Salange seems to induce Belinda into labor, causing Belinda to give birth via C-section. Upon returning home from the hospital, Belinda is horrified to find the house completely refurnished by Salange, who's delighted that they named the baby Lori. Salange and her prayer circle then take Lori and intensely pray over her and Belinda in tongues with their hands on Belinda's stomach. Freaked out, Belinda takes Lori and kicks them out of the house. This better not be no Rosemary's Baby shit. Salange tells Norman that Belinda isn't happy with her gifts. When Belinda complains that Salange and her prayer circle touched her and Lori while praying in tongues, Salange reminds him that he said she could invite her prayer circle if she paid for the furniture, which frustrates Belinda since Norman didn't inform her. After Norman explains that he thought she would like to have the house refurnished, Belinda tells him that she doesn't like how dated the interior looks and how Salange removed her statues and displayed Lawrence's urn. She then demands that he remind Salange that it's their house, not hers. Brandy starts singing, "You need to give it up, had about enough. This house is mine." After Belinda tends to Lori, who doesn't latch and keeps on crying, Belinda joins Salange and Norman at dinner. When Belinda refuses to eat the food Salange prepared, Salange gets angry and an argument erupts, with Belinda calling Salange racist. Belinda says she's from Haiti, and Salange says they don't know how to run a country down there. She probably heard Trump's lies about Ohio. Salange calls Belinda uppity, then puts her napkin like a KKK hood, then throwing her salad, acting like a baby. Salange throws herself to the floor and Belinda stops Norman from helping her up, finally correcting her that her name is Belinda, not Belinda. Salange using that hard R in Belinda. Then Salange lets a fart out. Belinda later notices that her C-section incision scar is almost non-existent, which surprises her because it's healing so fast. The next day, Belinda catches Salange walking perfectly fine without her walking canes. When Salange sees Belinda, she pretends to fall on the floor and tells her that she has made a mess. Oh my God, the way I cackled at this scene. Belinda is forced to clean up, but why they ain't hire a nurse by now? When Belinda picks up Salange's United Daughters of the Confederacy certificate, Salange says it's heritage. Salange gives Belinda the necklace. Salange tells her that she can tear the certificate if she takes the necklace. Salange shares that she had a daughter named Margaret Ann, who's smiling in heaven like Wallace. She then acts like Wallace is possessing her, which freaks Belinda out. Belinda informs Norman that Lori continues to cry loudly and not latch unless she dangles the necklace near her, expressing her concern that Salange is taking over everything. Norman tears the certificate and reiterates that they named the baby, not Salange. The next day, while Belinda calls Norman to beg him to return home as she's losing her mind over Salange's shenanigans, Salange carries Lori while speaking in tongues, and Lori immediately stops crying. Belinda then hallucinates seeing Salange as Mother Mary with multiple breasts. Horrified, Belinda takes Lori and demands that Salange stay away from them. During their argument, Salange throws herself against a table and laughs while her mouth bleeds. The way this woman fell had me dying. When Norman arrives, Salange switches to crying and tells him that Belinda tried to kill her. As Norman carries Salange to bring her to the hospital, Salange smiles at Belinda, taunting her. A frustrated Belinda later tells Norman that Salange who also told the nurses that she hit her, is lying. When she asks him about Margaret Ann, a confused Norman asks what she's talking about. She begs Norman to either hire a nurse for Salange or send her to a nursing home, but Norman begs her to stick it out since he's working on something important. Norman buys adult diapers for Salange, and Belinda spends her days dealing with Salange's shenanigans and caring for Lori. One day, Pastor Lewis visits to check on the family since Salange called him, saying things are getting tense. When Belinda confides that Salange is evil, he accidentally reveals that Salange paid off their mortgage, making her cry in frustration. After Pastor Lewis leaves, Belinda clarifies to Salange that it's their house, but Salange taunts her, saying the bank believes otherwise. When Salange confirms that she lied about Margaret Ann, Belinda pours water all over her and takes away the whistle she uses to call their attention. Waterboard that hoe. Later that night, Belinda hallucinates seeing adult Norman latching to Salange, making her vomit in disgust, this getting too Game of Thrones. Norman then confronts Belinda about a bite mark on Lori's arm. Belinda convinces him that Salange bit her, pointing out a gap in the bite mark, which is consistent with Salange's missing teeth. She also informs him that Salange is only pretending to be sick, as she doesn't even need the walking canes. Norman confronts Salange, but she only laughs at him, refusing to admit anything. After he tells her she can't live with them anymore, she hawks 2 ahs on his face and spends the entire night loudly pleading for her death while they sleep. The next morning, Belinda is pleasantly surprised that Lori finally latches. The couple then discovers Salange dead on her bed. They cremate her with the necklace. Years later, the Irwins, who have received their inheritance and are expecting twins, move into a new home. Norman brings in his mother's pink chair, but Belinda makes him throw it out since it reminds her of Salange. Belinda drives to a job interview, happily singing along to a song. In the interview, she expresses her passion for teaching and shares that she struggled when she was stuck at home with a newborn and a mother-in-law. When the interviewer comments that she can't imagine how she handled it, Belinda remembers getting up the night Salange was loudly pleading for her death and smothering Salange to death with a pillow to finally shut the racist up. What did y'all think of this one? A little odd, but I'm glad to see Brandy on my screen again. Can anyone relate to a terrible in-law like this one? The actress who played Salange did an amazing job.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.